Hello students, welcome to all of you Shiksha 360. Today basically we have to discuss the chapter number 11 of AFB. Clear? All these topics are very important and basically this chapter is very short chapter. Clear? Only 2 to 3 pages chapter basically in a book, and from this chapter you will get 3 to 4 questions. Clear? Basically most probably basically we will expect 0.5 mark question basically from this topic. Clear? So let's start our today's session. And most of the time, clear, basically they will ask example type question. Clear? Like what is capital expenditure? Clear? What are the example? Clear? This type of question you will find in the examination. Clear? So let's start our discussion. Introduction. Basically at the end of the year, clear, basically we have already discussed in the previous session regarding the trial balance. Clear? So at the end of the year, the trial balance is prepared. Clear? Basically at the end of the year, basically trial balance is prepared. And from the trial balance, clear, basically, and from the trial balance, final accounts, clear, for the end of the year, basically, first of all, what is prepared, that is the trial balance. And after that, basically, final accounts. That is basically trading and profit and loss account and balance sheet are to be prepared. Clear? So trial balance, basically what it shows that. Trial balance basically shows the debit and credit balances. Clear? Basically trial balance basically shows the debit and credit balances basically taken out from the ledger. Clear? Trial balance basically shows the debit and credit balances basically taken out from the ledger. So these balances further are then carried forward. Clear? So these balances basically are then further basically, or these balances then are carried forward to the trading profit and loss account and the balance sheet. Clear? So these balances then are carried forward basically to the trading profit and loss account and the balance sheet. Clear? And the balance sheet. Clear? So this is the regarding basic introduction of the topic. Clear? So first of all, that is basically at the end of the year, basically what we have to prepare, that is a trial balance sheet. Clear? So basically from that, basically we have to prepare the final account, that is trading and profit and loss account, and balance sheet are to be prepared. Clear? So basically trial balance, basically what it shows, basically we have already did, that is debit and credit balances. Clear? Taken out from the ledger. So these balances are then carried forward basically to the trading profit and loss account and the balance sheet. Clear? Now move to the next one. So all expenses, clear, basically under that, basically we have expenses also, basically where along with that, basically we have shifts also. Clear? So all expenses and receipts, all expenses and receipts of revenue in nature are shown in the trading and profit and loss account. Clear? Basically all expenses and receipts of the revenue nature. Clear? Of what? Basically of the revenue nature. Clear? Please remember that. Of revenue nature. Revenue nature, basically that it is to be represented basically the profit and loss trading and profit and loss account. On the other side, basically all expenses and receipts. All expenses and receipts. Clear? Basically all expenses and receipts basically of what? Here basically that is of revenue nature. Clear? If it is of revenue nature, then it is represented in the trading and profit and loss account. Clear? And if all the expenses and receipts are of a capital nature. Clear? If all expenses and receipts are of a capital nature, that is basically long duration. This is recurring. Clear? This is recurring capital nature, that is long duration. Clear? So basically are taken to the balance sheet. Clear? Are taken to the balance sheet. Clear? So it is therefore necessary. Clear? So it is therefore necessary to know. Clear? So it is therefore necessary basically to know what is meant by the revenue and the capital expenses. Clear? So it is therefore necessary to know what is meant by the revenue and the capital expenses. Clear? So basically it is meant to know basically what are expenses. So expenses are basically further two types. First one is the revenue expenses. Second one is the capital expenses. Similarly, basically we have earning, that is shifts. First one is the capital receipts. Second one is the revenue. Clear? So it is therefore necessary to know basically what is meant by the revenue and capital expenses and revenue and capital receipts and their importance. Clear? Basically, and their importance basically in the preparation of final accounts. Clear? And their importance. Clear? Along with their importance basically in the preparation of the final account. Clear? So this is the basic introduction. Clear? So this is the basic introduction. So please remember that first point basically which they will ask you here, that is expenses and receipts of the revenue nature. Clear? Of the revenue nature basically it is will be shown in the trading and profit and loss account, and all expenses and receipts of the capital nature. Revenue basically the trading and profit and loss account. Capital nature basically that it is in the balance sheet. Clear? That it is in the balance sheet. Clear? So expenditure. Clear? So basically we know that expenditure, either it is to be the capital expenditure or it is to be the revenue expenditure. Clear? So either it is to be the capital expenditure or it is to be the revenue expenditure. Clear? So how basically we are know? Basically which expenditure basically it is to be the revenue expenditure and which revenue basically it is to be the capital expenditure. Clear? So now let's understand regarding that. So an expenditure basically it is decided. Clear? So an expenditure basically it is decided. Capital or revenue. Clear? Basically an expenditure basically it is decided. Either it is to be capital or it is to be revenue. Clear? Depending upon a number of factors. Clear? So an expenditure basically it is decided. Capital or revenue. Depending upon a number of factors such as nature of the expense. Clear? First point basically which we have to discuss is that is the nature of the expense. Second one, that is effect of revenue earning capacity. Clear? First one is nature of the expense. Second one, that is basically effect of on revenue earning capacity. Third one, that is benefit from the expenditure. Clear? Third one, that is benefit from the expenditure. Clear? So an expenditure basically first one basically we have to understand basically from the nature. Second one, that is effect on a revenue earning capacity. Third one basically that is benefit from the expenditure. Clear? So what is the meaning of all these things? Clear? What is the meaning of nature? What is the effect of revenue? And what is the benefit from the expenditure? Clear? So now let's understand basically from these things. First of all, basically we have to discuss regarding the nature of the expenditure. So this is one of the most common tests. Clear? Basically this is one of the most common tests to decide whether an expense incurred is of the capital or revenue nature. Clear? Basically it is of the capital or revenue nature. Clear? So certain expenses are recurring. Clear? Certain expenses are recurring that are basically comes under the revenue expenditure. Clear? Revenue expenditure. Recurring basically means that basically after a particular period. Clear? That is after a short duration, that expense basically we have to pay again, like electricity bill, rent. Clear? So basically these are comes under the recurring nature. Clear? So certain expenses are recurring. Clear? So recurring basically refers to the frequency. Clear? So recurring basically refers to the frequency with which a transaction occurs in a business. Clear? So what is the meaning of recurring? Clear? So recurring basically means a recurring basically refers to the frequency. Clear? Basically with which transaction occurs in the business. Clear? Basically with which a transaction occurs in the business. So a recurring expenditure is one. Clear? Clear? So we can say that basically a recurring expenditure basically it is a one which occurs frequently. Clear? So recurring expenditure basically it is a one basically which occurs frequently. For example, purchase of the raw materials, payment of salary. Please remember these examples. Very, very important for the examination point of view. Purchase of the raw materials, payment of salary, rent, telephone charges, etc. Clear? So basically these all are to be considered under the revenue expenses. Clear? That are recurring in nature. That is basically after a particular time. Clear? These expenses basically we have to pay again. Clear? Like basically payment of salary 30 days. Clear? Basically after every month, rent also, telephone charges also. Clear? So all are considered basically under the revenue expenses. Now move to the next one, that is second, that is capital expenditure. Clear? So what are that? Clear? So non-recurring expenditure. Clear? like one time. Clear, as a non-recurring expenditure is always capital in nature. Clear, that is basically, or basically we have to do expense basically after a long duration like 5 years, 4 years. Clear. So non-recurring expenditure basically it is always capital in nature, unless materially concept emphasizes the importance of recognizing it as a revenue expenditure. Clear. So for example, purchase of a wall clock. Clear, basically purchase of a wall clock basically for rupees 500. It is a non-recurring expenditure. Clear, because we know that basically there is a, because we know that basically the life of a clock is 5 to 6 years. Clear, generally basically we can say that basically 4 to 5 or 5 to 6 years. Clear, the life of the clock. Clear. Let's a purchase of a wall clock basically for rupees 500. Basically, it is a non-recurring expenditure. But on the basis of the materiality concept, clear, it may be treated as a revenue expense. Clear. It may be treated as a revenue expense. Example, like basically we have to change the cell. Clear, basically change the cell basically in the clock basically after a short duration. Clear. That's why basically clear. So, but on the basis of materiality concept, it may be treated as a revenue expense. Clear. So, like purchase of a motor car, plant or building, clear, are some of the examples of a capital expenditure. Clear. Basically are some of the examples of the capital expenditure. Clear. So please tell fast now. It is now clear to all of you basically what is the difference between the capital expenditure and the revenue expenditure. Please respond fast. If you have any doubt, any query regarding for the same, please ask fast. Hope now it is clear to all of you basically what is the difference between the capital expenditure and the revenue expenditure. Clear. Now move to the next one. Second point which we have to cover now, that is effect on the revenue earning capacity. Clear, effect on the revenue earning capacity. So the expenses, clear, the expenses basically which help to generate the income or revenue. Clear, the expenses basically which help to generate the income or revenue basically in the current year. Clear, the expenses basically which we have done to generate the income or revenue basically in the current year basically are called as revenue in nature. Clear, are revenue in nature. And should we match it against the revenue basically earned in the current period. Clear. On the other hand, if the expenditure basically helps to generate revenue basically over more than one accounting period, clear, over more than one accounting period, then it is basically generally called as the capital expenditure. Clear. So on the other hand, if the expenditure helps to generate revenue, clear, basically if the expenditure basically helps to generate revenue over more than one accounting period, clear, basically over more than one accounting period, then it is generally called as the capital expenditure. Clear. Then it is basically generally called as a capital expenditure. Clear. Example like purchase of a plant. Clear. Example like purchase of a plant. Clear. So please tell fast. That is basically, hope you are able to understand. Like basically from the expensive basically which we are able to generate income or revenue basically in the current year basically that are revenue in nature, and for the long time basically that is basically for more than one accounting period, then it is to becomes under the category of the capital expenditure. Then third one, that is benefit from the expenditure. Clear. That is benefit from the expenditure. Clear. So basically if the benefit from an expenditure, clear, basically if the benefit basically from the expenditure incurred, it is of short duration. Clear. That is basically for that specific period. Basically we are going to get benefit. Clear. So if the benefit basically from an expenditure incurred, it is of short duration, then it is to be considered as the revenue expenditure. Clear. So in that case, clear, then it is to be considered as the revenue expenditure. As against this, clear, sorry, as against this, if benefit basically it is of long duration, clear, if benefit basically from that expenditure basically it is of long duration, then it is considered as the capital expenditure. Clear. Then it is considered as the capital expenditure. Clear. So the main purpose of incurring such expenditure basically is to earn income over a period of years. Clear. Basically is to earn income basically over a period of years or increase the earning capacity of the business. Clear. So the main purpose of incurring such expenditure basically is to earn the income over the period of years or increase the earning capacity of the business. Clear. Or increase the earning capacity of the business. Let's take an example. Like basically you have done the advertisement. So basically advertisement basically always gives you a long-term benefit. Clear. Basically advertisement Basically, it is always gives you long-term benefit. Clear? So that is basically considered as the capital expenditure. Clear? So expenditure basically spent on basically money spent on the advertisement. Generally, basically we have to consider under the capital expenditure. Clear? Consider under the capital expenditure. Now move to the next one. Capital expenditure. Clear? So now let's discuss in detail regarding that. Basically, what is capital expenditure? Clear? So capital expenditure, basically it is that expenditure, the benefit of which is enjoyed. Clear? The benefit of which is enjoyed or consumed. Not in only 1 year. Clear? Not in 1 year only, but over many years. Clear? So capital expenditure basically is the expenditure, the benefit of which is enjoyed or consumed. Clear? The benefit of which is enjoyed or consumed, not in the 1 year only, basically, but over many years. So it is the expenditure incurred. Clear? So it is the expenditure incurred, basically, which results in the purchase or acquisition of assets. Clear? Basically, which results basically in the purchase or acquisition of assets. Clear? Basically, it is the expenditure basically which results in the purchase or acquisition of assets and properties. And properties basically which may be used for many years. Clear? And properties which may be used for many years. Clear? So that is basically comes under the capital expenditure. So the main purpose, clear? What is the main purpose of this expenditure? The main purpose of incurring such expenditure, clear? The main purpose of incurring such expenditure is to earn the income over a period of years. Clear? So the main purpose of incurring such expenditure basically is to earn the income. Clear? Is to earn the income basically over a period of years or increase the earning capacity. So the main purpose of basically incurring such expenditure, basically first one, either basically is to earn the income over a period of years or increase the earning capacity of the business. Clear? Concern. Basically with the aid of basically or with the help of benefits acquired from such expenditure. Clear? Or basically with the aid of benefits acquired basically from such expenditure. For example, purchase of plant and machinery or building computer software or patent rights, etc. Clear? So all these things are comes under the capital expenditure. Clear? For example, basically purchase of plant and machinery, building computer softwares or patent rights. Clear? All these things basically come in the category of the capital expenditure. So the capital expenditure, clear? So further, basically the capital expenditure relates not only to the tangible fixed assets. Clear? So the capital expenditure, clear? So please remember that. Clear? So capital expenditure, as basically from the name, it suggests that basically sometimes basically we think that basically it is related only to the tangible fixed assets. Clear? That is basically which are touchable. Clear? Not. But it is also for the intangible assets. Clear? But it is also for the intangible asset. Like basically we are taking the license. Clear? Basically we are taking the license basically of working in any specific organization. Clear? Like basically we are starting a business or basically we are taking the license. Clear? So license basically we can say that basically it is like a intangible. Clear? Under that. Clear? Like basically for the long duration. Clear? So Indian accounting standards 16 basically deals with that. Clear? So Indian accounting standards, please remember that. Basically, which is Indian accounting standard, that is basically 16, deals with the tangible fixed assets. Clear? Deals with the tangible fixed asset like property, plant and equipment. While Indian standard 38, clear, basically deals with the intangible assets. Clear? Deals with the intangible assets. Clear? So please remember both these types of the assets. Clear? Tangible, that is Indian accounting standard 16 and intangible Indian accounting standards 38. So these accounting standards basically classify certain expenses. Clear? So these accounting standards basically classify certain expenses, or that is basically we can say that cost as capital cost. Clear? So these accounting standards basically classify certain expenses as known as capital cost, while some other are classified as revenue expenses. Clear? Basically while some other are classified. Clear? Basically while some other are classified as revenue expenses. Clear? Basically while some other are classified as revenue expenses. Clear? So please remember that. Clear? Both these things are very, very important basically for the examination point of view. So now let's understand basically which of comes under which thing. Clear? That is, some of these are given below. Clear? So the list are only indicative and one should refer to Indian Accounting Standards 16 and 18, 38 basically for the detailed clarification. Clear? So let's discuss. So cost, which are classified as capital expenditure. Clear? Basically cost basically which are classified as capital expenditure. Clear? So first of all, basically we have discussed regarding the initial cost. Clear? So these includes. Clear? So what it includes? Clear? Basically these includes purchase price. Clear? So basically this includes basically purchase price, including duties and non-refundable taxes. Clear? So basically these includes basically purchase prices, including duties and non-refundable taxes, cost directly attributable to bringing the asset basically to the location. Clear? That is basically we can say that like transportation cost and condition necessary basically for it to be operational. Clear? Like basically we can say that all electricity connections. Clear? So all the machinery area. Clear? Basically we have to build properly. Clear? So basically these includes initial cost. Basically these includes basically purchase price, including duties, that is basically taxes basically which we have to pay, and non-refundable taxes. Clear? So, and cost directly basically attributable basically to bringing the asset. Clear? Basically to bringing the asset basically to the location, and condition necessary for it. Clear? Basically and condition necessary for it to be operational. So this is also applicable to acquisition of the intangible assets. Clear? Basically this is also applicable. Clear? Further basically this is also applicable basically to the acquisition of the intangible assets. Clear? Basically to the acquisition of the intangible assets. So second one, that is the subsequent cost. Clear? Second one here, that is the subsequent cost. Clear? So basically these costs. Clear? Basically these costs, these include basically cost of parts of some items of the assets. Clear? Requiring replacement basically at regular intervals. Clear? Like basically we can say that oiling of the machinery. Clear? That is to be done basically after every 3 months. Clear? So that is basically considered under the subsequent cost. Clear? So basically these include cost of parts of some items of the assets requiring the replacement. Clear? Basically requiring the replacement basically at regular intervals. Clear? So these include, so these also include the cost of the major inspection for potential faults in the assets. Clear? Basically these also include the basically cost for the major inspection for potential faults in the assets. Clear? Basically for potential faults in the asset. So all these comes basically under the subsequent cost. Clear? So now let's some of the examples of the above cost. Clear? First one, cost of employee benefits arising directly basically from the construction or acquisition of the asset, cost of site preparation, initial delivery and handling cost, installation and assembly cost, cost of testing, professional fees, research of development expenditure. Clear? So all directly attributable cost necessary to create. Clear? So all directly attributable cost basically necessary to create, produce and operate. Clear? All directly basically attributable cost basically necessary to create, produce and operate, and internally generated intangible asset. Clear? To create, produce and operate an internally generated intangible asset. Clear? So please remember all these that are basically comes under that. Further, next one, that is basically cost basically which are not classified as capital expenditure. Clear? Now basically we have to discuss regarding the costs basically which are not classified as the capital expenditure, that is which are treated as the revenue expenditure. Clear? So basically which are going to be treated as the revenue expenditure. First one, that is cost of day-to-day servicing of the assets. Clear? Basically cost of day-to-day servicing of the assets, including that intangible assets. Clear? So these are primarily the cost of the labor and the consumables. Clear? Basically these are primarily basically the cost of the labor and the consumables, and may include the cost of small parts. Clear? Basically and may include the cost of small parts. Clear? So cost of day-to-day servicing of the assets. Clear? That is basically we can say that including intangible assets. Clear? Including intangible assets. Clear? So basically these are primarily the cost of the labor and the consumables. Clear? Basically these are primarily the basically the cost of the labor and the consumables, and may include, clear, basically and may include the cost of small parts also. Clear? Basically and may include the cost of small parts also. Second one, basically Cost of opening a new facility, that is introducing a new product or service, conducting business basically in a new location or with a new class of customers, and administrative and other general costs, clear, and administrative and other general costs, clear. Third one, basically cost of relocating or reorganizing basically part or all of the entities operations, clear. Third one, that is basically cost of relocating, clear, cost of relocating or reorganizing, clear, basically cost of relocating or reorganizing part or all of an entity's operation, clear, basically either one part or all of an entity's operation, clear. So that are basically also comes under that. Last one here, that is the cost on internally generated assets, clear, basically cost on internally generated assets like the goodwill, brands, mastheads, publishing tiles, customer list, and similar items, clear, basically if the costs are not directly related to the create, produce, and operate, clear. So what these costs, clear, basically such costs like selling, administrative, and other general overheads, clear, basically, and other general overheads, or basically we can say that basically trans expenditure, clear, basically expenditure basically spends on training the staff, clear, basically to operate the asset, clear, expenditure basically spent on training the staff basically to operate the asset, clear. So all these costs basically we are not classified basically as the capital expenditure. So generally basically these are to be classified under the revenue expenditure, like basically employees, clear. Sometimes basically some employees basically leave the organization, clear. So basically we have to train the new employees basically according to that, clear, basically we have to train the new employees basically with respect to the present technology, clear. Or with the respect to that work, clear, basically which is to be going on, clear. So that is basically we can consider these expenses basically in the form of the revenue expenditure, clear, basically in the form of the revenue expenditure, clear. So I request to all of you, please remember all these expenditures, clear. So please remember all these expenditures. So now last one, that is this is the difference, clear. So now last one basically which we have to understand, that is what is the difference, clear, basically what is the difference between the capital and the revenue expenditure, clear, between the capital and the revenue expenditure, clear. So basically capital expenditure, revenue expenditure, clear. So amount spent basically it is usually large, clear, basically in the capital expenditure basically amount spent basically it is usually large. In the revenue expenditure basically amount spent basically it is relatively small. Second one, basically the purpose of the capital expenditure. So the purpose basically here is to improve or enhance business or productive or earning capacity, clear. So the purpose here basically is to improve or enhance, clear. The purpose here basically is to improve or enhance business or productive or earning capacity, clear. So the purpose here basically is to improve or enhance business or productive or earning capacity, clear. Next one, that is under the revenue expenditure. The purpose basically is to maintain the fixed assets, clear. The purpose basically here is to maintain the fixed assets basically in a good working condition, clear. So basically that is under the revenue expenditure. The purpose basically here is to maintain the fixed assets, clear, is to here the maintain the fixed assets basically in a good working condition, clear. Third one, basically the benefit it is of long duration, clear. In this basically the benefit is of long duration. Under that the benefit it is basically of short duration, clear. It is non-recurring basically, but it is recurring, clear. That is basically continuously basically we have to pay, that is after a short duration of time, clear, or after a specified duration of time. Very, very important basically which we have discussed in the starting of the session. Capital expenditure basically it is shown in the balance sheet, clear. Revenue expenditure basically it is shown in the trading and profit and loss account, clear. It is shown in the trading and profit and loss. So please tell fast if you have any doubt regarding these expenditure, clear. What is the revenue expenditure and what is the capital expenditure? Please tell fast if you have any doubt, any query. Now the last point basically which we have to discuss here, that is basically we have discussed regarding the expenditure, clear, but basically we are not discussed till now, that is basically from where basically we are earning the money, clear. Basically here basically we are discussing that basically where basically we have to spend the money, clear. Either that is capital expenditure or that is revenue expenditure, clear. Now next one, that is basically we have to discuss, that is either basically there are capital receipts or the revenue receipts, clear. So basically either there are capital receipts or the revenue receipts, clear. So now let's discuss. So capital receipts, clear. Capital receipts, like basically we are getting money basically from the issue of the shares, clear. So capital receipts basically are from the issue of the equity, preference shares, or capital instruments, clear. So basically capital receipts basically are from the issue of the equity, preference shares or capital instruments, clear, or from the sale or disposal of, clear, or basically from where basically we are earning the money, or basically from the sale or disposal of the fixed assets, long-term investments, or basically from the grants received from the governments, clear, or basically grants basically received from the governments for building of the capital assets, clear, basically for building of the capital asset, like basically we can say that from grants received from the government basically for building of the capital assets, clear? Like basically we can say that plant, clear, basically for the plant building, clear. So capital receipts basically are not routed through the profit and loss account, clear. So capital receipts basically are not routed basically from the profit and loss account. However, profit and loss basically if any arising basically from such a transaction basically it is recorded in the profit and loss account, clear. So please remember that basically capital receipts are basically not routed through the profit and loss account. But if we are getting any profit or loss, clear, basically from these such transactions, clear. So then these transactions basically are to be recorded in the profit and loss account, clear. So those basically specific transactions, clear, basically those specific transactions are to be recorded, clear. So basically those specific transactions basically are to be recorded basically in the profit and loss account, clear, in the profit and loss account, clear. So please remember all these things. Now last one basically which we have to discuss, last point, that is the revenue receipts, clear. That is revenue receipts basically, that is basically we are continuously receiving money, clear, after a specific period of time. So revenue receipts are the receipts basically from the day-to-day operations, clear. So revenue receipts basically are the receipts basically from the day-to-day operations of the company, or receipts where there is no further obligation basically on the entity basically to perform certain actions, clear. So revenue receipts basically are routed through the profit and loss account, clear, are routed basically through the profit and loss account, clear. So revenue receipts basically are received from the day-to-day operation of the company, clear, or receipts basically where there is no further obligation on the entity to perform the certain actions, clear. So that are basically considered under the revenue receipts, clear. So this is the overall discussion of the chapter number 11. And what basically we have discussed in this session, definitely basically you will get straightforward in the form of the question basically in the examination, clear. Hope it is clear to all of you. So already slides basically will be updated in your group. So I request to all of you, please go through that once again, and session basically will be uploaded also. So basically most probably basically tomorrow basically I will provide you the question for this topic for the practice purpose, clear, in your Telegram group, clear. So I request all of you, please do continuously revision these topics, clear, like chapter number 10, 4 to 5 marks directly basically you will find from the chapter number 10 also, clear. 2 marks basically from this chapter, clear. So all these topics are very, very important. So please do continuously revision of these topics, clear. So next basically we have to discuss chapter number 12, clear. That will take basically 2 sessions, clear. So thanks to all of you for joining this session.